finance, let's say finance page of yahoo.com. Trump's tariffs have already wiped out tax bill savings for average Americans. And there's a graph here in which a tax cut of $930 for the middle class, and a tariff cost of almost what appears to be almost $4,000. And it's saying that the full force of Trump's enacted and planned tariffs on goods from China and Mexico amount to more than 4 times the size of the tax cut for middle earners. Now, that includes what's proposed. Now, apparently, as I'll get into with the time I'll have left, for now anyway, actually the tariffs on Mexico have been suspended, if you've heard that news. But already, the cost for middle earners, the middle class, with tariffs that have already been put in place, is estimated at $831. That from the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center, New York Federal Reserve. $831 cost from already enacted tariffs, $930 tax cut. So again, already, with the tariffs that have already been enacted, that tax cut, for all intents and purposes, pretty much gone. Wiped out all but $100 of the average American household's windfall, as this says from Bloomberg as well, from Trump's 2017 tax law. It then goes on to say if the president makes good, or would make good, on his threats to impose levies on virtually all imports from China and Mexico, then that could lead to paying nearly $4,000 more for middle-earning households, effectively paying out about $3,000 more in taxes through additional levies from a supposed tax cut. Kim Clausing, an economics professor at Reed College in Portland, Oregon, says it's giving with one hand and taking with the other. Again, $300 billion tariffs on Chinese goods that Trump proposed in May. That increases the cost for the average family of 4 to almost $2,300 annually. He then, of course, threatened to levy tariffs on imports with Mexico. That apparently, thankfully, I suppose we can say, or definitely can say, has been put off for now. Now, more on that in a moment, but the point being, these tariffs cost the average American, cost you and me money. So these tariffs are in effect taxes upon the American people when it's all said and done in terms of paying higher prices. And we're already going to get slammed, I'm sorry to say, but I believe I have to say in all seriousness, at some point when it comes to food prices in this country. Take a look around. Take a look at what has happened. You've got, again, this bomb cyclone, as they called it, that hit Iowa, that hit Nebraska, that led to catastrophic flooding, that led to the loss of crops that were flooded and ruined by floodwaters at that particular time, at that exact time, that led to the loss of quite a few animals when that storm hit. And that led to, you still had at that time unmelted snow that sat above, that when that snow melted, it went down into the groundwater, raising the groundwater level, contributing to, again, probably more flooding on top of that. But again, looking again, even here in Ohio, we haven't had that type of flooding. Aside from the tornadoes that we sustained last month, it's been so rainy here that it's been tough for farmers to get out into the fields and plant their crops here in Ohio as well. And that's been on the local news and various stations, outlets right here in my state. And when you look at the national numbers, you're talking about 30 to 33%, whatever it is, of cornfields that have been planted nationally. And I think soybean fields were maybe even lower than that. But the point being, usually you've got about 80-90% of the fields planted. you've got about a third of the fields, if that, planted already. So we're going to have, in comparison to what we usually have, we're going to have food shortages. Because of that, we're going to have an increase in food prices, so you're going to be paying more. Stocking up would be a good idea while you still can, because you're going to be paying more at the grocery store as well. So in addition to the tariffs, now that's not Trump's fault as far as the weather, at least we certainly don't think it is, but in addition to the tariffs and those taxes, like I said, you will almost assuredly be paying more at the store. But now, what about this deal that was just struck with Mexico, supposedly just struck with Mexico? That's interesting, because this came out from the New York Times. I'm not going to read all of it for time's sake. I will post it. But this is not a new deal. Either the play on FDR's New Deal, or, it's just plain not a new deal. According to sources in both countries, Mexico agreed to take border actions months before Trump announced this all-new tariff deal just this weekend. That they'd already talked about and agreed to this with secret talks that occurred, it says, in March of this year, with discussions that occurred in December of last year, that basically Mexico had already agreed to do this. And, it's very interesting, too, when you talk about stirring things up and creating the distraction and the circus and the entertainment show. Because not only was this basically pretty much, I guess, already agreed to, whether it was being implemented fast enough for Trump may be another matter. But just look at what's even happened here. He talks about a national emergency to allocate funds for a border wall. Okay, that was back in February or March? And we heard about where they were supposedly going to get this money, or where they found this money. Have we really heard anything about it in the months since? About any progress, any progression on obtaining and utilizing the funds to build a border wall? One of the last stories I saw was that Steve Bannon had put together some group for private contractors and private citizens to start building a border wall. But Donald Trump? No. The guy can tweet out about Donnie Deutsch and Aaron Burnett begging him to be on The Apprentice. You would think that he could tweet out, as he's got to be on Twitter to get his message out to the people, to battle and to combat and to thwart the fake news media. You would think that he could be giving progress reports frequently on the border wall construction that he declared a national emergency for. Real progress reports, not the fake ones that, the new wall has already been built, or we're working on it, there's so much of it that's been built. That's nonsense. But I wanted to get to, I've got little over about 6.5 minutes here, and time is flying now. This from Veterans Today. U.S. agrees to support Mexican Marshall Plan for Central America, ECLAC, which I believe ultimately is a United Nations plan, from Johnny Punish, probably a screen name. Underreported by Trump media, the U.S.-Mexico deal on tariffs secured U.S. economic commitment to addressing underlying root causes of Central American migration. Now, basically what this is saying, and the long and short of this, is that the U.S. agreed to welcome the Comprehensive Development Plan launched by the government of Mexico in concert with the governments of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to work with regional and international partners to build a more prosperous and secure Central America to address the underlying causes of migration so Central Americans can build better lives for themselves and their families at home and not feel the desperate need to migrate. But again, the point being that we didn't really get anything new out of this deal, and we agreed with Mexico. We kind of capitulated to Mexico a little bit on this. We got nothing when it came. He was claiming that Mexico agreed to buy American crops. You know what? First of all, guess what? Like I just said, we're going to need those crops for our people. I don't know how bad it's going to be. We have been a blessed nation. Those blessings have been diminishing, though. But we're going to have food shortages in this country. And so we don't necessarily, I don't think anyway, need to be exporting a bunch of crops to begin with. But the point being, that's not in the deal. That Mexico agreed to that. It's not there. Now, quickly, again, just talking as well about, and I got to hit on this really quick, and I'll post some stuff. Here's what's going on as Trump is complaining about illegal immigrants and migrants and invasion at our southern border. And there's many people who agree with that, and that's fine. I happen to think that, yes, it is a problem when you look at the sheer numbers and when you look at what's going on. But what is also going on once they're here? And again, I'm just going to hit on some high points, maybe headlines in a few sentences. Russia Today. TSA allows newly arrived illegals to fly without ID. Now, folks, this is the TSA. Okay? This is the groping, leering, privacy invading, constitution breaking TSA that everybody complains about at the airport. These illegals come into the country, and at a time in which we have terrorist watch list and so forth, at a time in which everybody is supposed to be scrutinized, over-scrutinized throughout the airports around this country, allowing newly arrived illegals to fly without ID. Just move about freely, fly freely, no ID, no papers, oh, that's fine, go about your business. The TSA is part of the executive branch. It's part of the Department of Homeland Security. It's hard to blame anybody else for what the TSA is doing when that's under your control, so to speak. Department of Homeland Security, Breitbart.com, fast tracks migrants straight onto jobs. They are giving these people work permits, fast tracking the process so that these illegal immigrants, whether they're coming across for whatever the reason, claiming asylum, seeking asylum, invading, looking for jobs, the Department of Homeland Security, again, Trump's Department of Homeland Security, it's part of the executive branch. He appoints the chair of Homeland Security, fast-tracking migrants in this country straight into jobs, pretty much ahead of the American citizens. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, again. This from Breitbart as well, June 6th, 3 days ago. Frees 5,500 illegal aliens into the U.S. interior in a week, 196,000 released into various parts of the country this month, or in the last 5 months. Every year, 300,000 anchor babies born in the United States. So far this year, 124,000 anchor babies born in the United States. This from the Gateway Pundit, a site that I used to really like, that I don't really respect anymore, but hundreds of illegal aliens from Ebola-stricken Congo dumped in the streets of San Antonio. There's a video out there of people, 134 illegal migrants, walking around a partial border wall in Arizona, immediately surrendering because they know they'll get access into the United States. So he can blame fingers. The results are not there. And again, that's what we need to evaluate. It's called holding your president, holding your leaders accountable. It's called looking at the results. I am pretty much out of time. I am Jason Oz. This has been American Faith Today.